I'm just trying to think of different wrestling stories that haven't been told at this point that I feel need to be told.
Oh, well, we have a hand raise.
Oh, me, yes. I have one. The entire McMahon family.
You got that wonderful Vince one on Vice. That wasn't good enough for you?
Oh, you get out of here.
You mean the best of Dark Side of the Ring?
You get out of here with that Scotch tape, putting the segments together, borrowed from all the other shows. Get out of here with that.
I mean, they almost had a permanent in the corner from such and such episode, Dark Side of the Ring, from such and such episode, Dark Side of the Ring. There was zero, like there was one original like quote in there.
Well, are we getting that Bill Simmons one? Like, is that one ever going to see the light of day?
No.
Okay.
No. Somehow, some way that will go right back to the NBA.
Okay.
So no, I don't know how, but somehow he'll attach it to the Celtics of '86. So no, I don't need that. No, what I'm telling you is that I said the entire Vince McMahon family. I'm talking about. I want to know about his wife. I want to know about Shane. I want to know about Stephanie. That's what I want.
What about his dad? Start all the way back there.
I mean, that's for old guys like me. I'd like to see what the old man was like. Yes, I'd love to know what the old man was like and with his Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund as his champion. I'd love to see that, but I need to know more about the old lady. I want to know about Vince's wife. I want to know about that whole dynamic, the four of them. Vince, okay, we got that story, but what about the wife? How's she feeling that Vince has been outside the marriage for a long time, apparently, allegedly?
So the Vince thing I wrote down is the end of Vince. Like what it was like as he's getting pushed out and then coming back in and then getting pushed back out.
I mean, knowing the family dynamic, I think would be wild, and we're never going to get that story, right? Like, because you would need one of the three to sit down. Actually, I mean, and honestly, if you wanted the full picture, you would need all three of Linda, Shane, and Stephanie to sit down. I could see Shane doing it. I can't see Linda and Stephanie doing it.
With Linda, I mean, she's been on the outs for a long time. I mean, also she's been in the White House.
Well, yeah. So like after her political career, because WWE, presumably went to PG to try to help her out and make her more of an attractive candidate to get elected. Once her political career failed, if she didn't step up and start like blabbing stories out there, I don't think she's ever going to be doing it.
That's what I want, though. And like Stephanie's shunned from the company. I mean, in and out of the company like that. And like Shane, how about you talk, Shane?
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about being pushed out.
I think Shane would talk in a heartbeat. I think you start asking questions for Shane he'll see the camera. He'll just start answering. Like he does, he'll just start answering.
If we got Triple H and Stephanie divorce, would Triple H do with one then? Because then Shane would do that. You get him in that way.
Allegedly. Yeah. That's how.
So you get half of them that way.
What if the devil mask is Shane McMahon? What if Shane is the devil in AEW?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That'd be different.
It'd be shocking.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, like all I can think of Shane now is blowing out his quad at WrestleMania now.
Yes,
that's all I can think of. Like like the rise and fall of Shane McMahon is also just wild from a wrestling perspective.
Yeah.
Like going away for so long, coming back. Like when he initially came back, the night they gave away that award, and they were going to give it to Stephanie or whatever, or Stephanie was going to give it to Vince, and all of a sudden here comes the money hit. Like that was a legitimate surprise and a huge pop. Such a huge pop, and everybody was excited for Shane. And then Shane overstayed his welcome with the Best in the World tournament and that whole thing. And then he tried to secretly come back behind the scenes, messed up the Royal Rumble, where Randy Orton's laughing at him backstage. Then he stays along. And like the pop that he got at Mania last year, everyone's like, ooh, I'm curious. And then he comes out and just blows his quad and Snoop Dogg has to save the day. Like, what are we doing?
I like to know more about that from Shane. Like all of it, man. I think that'd be great. Also, you know what? We haven't heard enough, I think, in a really deep dive on the Montreal Screwjob. We should really find out more about that, what happened with Brett and Sean. I feel incomplete. I think we need more on that story.
Do you think that's impossible because Sean is still too ingrained in WWE?
No, I'm effing with you. Like we've heard so much of it. No, I'm effing with you. No,
okay.
I mean we've heard way too much about that document.
I was about to say, like, if you want to get deeper, like if you want the real truth from Sean, he's got to get removed from WWE.
No,
Well,
Because
the other one I wrote
that's like
down.
the problem with a lot of these stories is they get WWE-atized, like, which
Right.
I'm curious about WCW, this WCW thing they're working on. It's still obviously because it's $7 and it's Dwayne, and he's obviously a WWE guy. But like, as good as the Monday Night Wars and some of the other WWE produced material has been that's been on the WWE network, like there's still some parts, some holes in that storytelling that WWE doesn't want to tell because like they're telling it from the winner's perspective. I'm hoping we get some outside of WWE perspective, and that's how this thing can separate itself. But a lot of the stories that have been told just kind of get WWEified. Like I don't know if we've actually talked about it here with the Kurt Angle documentary and how they kind of mess with the timeline a little bit, where his current wife wasn't there as he was going through a lot of the bad stuff that he was going through when he was with TNA, and there's a huge TNA hole in the story.
Mhm.
Mostly good for a documentary, but it's not the complete look because it gets WWE-atized.
Well, that's the thing with the WCW story. Like, I'm curious to see, like, what else is there? Like, the mysterious demise. Like, they spent a lot of money. They got beat by Vince. Vince Russo and David Arquette happened. Like, what else is there? I think they can have fun with it. Like, I read the Depth of WCW book. Is one of my favorite books where it just goes through, like, week by week of, like, those final few years and just the plot holes and just the awful booking. So if it's like that could be fun. But I'm wondering what else there is to tell. But obviously, if Dwayne's involved, then he wants to see something out of it also.
Yeah, I mean, for someone who was watching WCW back then, when I was doing, they weren't podcasts, they were radio shows on Monday nights when Raw took on Nitro. I mean, I could tell you about the depth of WCW. It was just that, Eric Bischoff was inept.
Right.
And if you want to know about the depth of WCW, listen to his podcast, 83 Weeks, because there's a guy there was in charge of the company, but would find a side office and never be in Gorilla. He would always just hide in the office, right? And of course, any fault with WCW never felt with him. There's a guy here that never takes blame. Takes blame for the bad creative ever.
And that's the other thing, right? Like, so you mentioned his podcast, 83 Weeks. Like, now you're not getting a neutral story. You're getting from Eric Bischoff's side, and he's not taking the responsibility that probably needs to be taken in that instance.
Yeah, what happened is that Mike Tyson was taking on Shawn Michaels, actually taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin. They were face to face, and Nitro never recovered. And while you had Mike Tyson and you had Stone Cold Steve Austin against Shawn Michaels and Mr. McMahon becoming the biggest heel in the business, on the other end, you've got the finger poke of doom, Hogan against Nash in front of 45,000 people at the Georgia Dome, a whole schmaz where Hogan just pokes Nash. Nash falls down 1, 2, 3 in front of 45,000 people. To me, that was the end of the company right there. Now they'll say, oh, well, Time Warner wanted to have more of a kid-friendly show, while WWE was raunchy and all that. No, the booking was horrendous, and Vince Russo's part of that as well. So it just, to me, I'll watch, but there's nothing that they could tell me I don't already know about both companies during that era.
The other story I wrote down sort of outside the WWE bubble is Brawl Out. Like, if somehow there's video of what happened backstage and Larry the dog's involved and people are biting and there's muffins, and just actually hearing from those guys what actually happened.
CM Punk had some extra muffins. He's just like throwing them. Like,
you never know.
Hiding behind chairs and just lobbing muffins like grenades. Like, what are we doing?
Like, literally, if there was no dogs allowed in the workplace, CM Punk probably still works there and we're all good.